Greetings, race community. Brent coming in live from Rhode Island on St. Patrick's Day, joined by my guest, Kimera, who is the president of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire Foundation and executive director of University Advancement at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Do you really fit that all on a business card?
It's pretty tough, I have to tell you. I just say I work for the university.
Well, I am also thrilled to welcome a special, unexpected co-host. That is Evertrue's Jen Zacher. Jen and I were on a call 1 minute before I was about to kick off this podcast, and I said, I'm about to go interview Kim Wei from University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and Jen said, that's where my parents met. And I said, are you kidding me? We've got to get you on as a co-host. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you. It's true. They met at a Halloween party. My dad was a student there. My mom was student teaching in Eau Claire. And yeah, rest is history.
I love
1980 Blue Gold. I just looked him up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love it. Love it. Well, Kim, we met recently at the AGB conference, and it was a really fun time. Actually, one of the first conferences post the pandemic beginning where we were all able to convene, which was great. And we had a very, I thought, inspiring conversation just about the work that is being done at UW-Eau Claire, and really the way, what stood out to me was just how intertwined and interconnected communities are in college towns. And when a college is growing, communities are growing. It is hard if the college isn't growing and healthy for a small community to grow in spite of that. And I was just really struck by that intersection, and thought it would be fun to host you and hear more about that. But before we dive into all of that, I have to ask you more about your own college journey. So take me back to, let's call it your junior, senior year of high school. Who was that Kim, and what led her to be a Cotty girl, which is a new expression?
Indeed. So I grew up in a very small town in Wyoming, on a ranch, and the University of Wyoming is the only university in the state of Wyoming. Great place. But my older brothers were there, and the last thing I wanted to do was go down where I knew everybody. And so I had the opportunity through adult connections to learn about Cotty College, which is a small private women's liberal arts college in Nevada, Missouri. It's owned by a women's organization. And this mentor said, you should go to Cotty. I said, okay. And 700 miles away, my parents drove me there, dropped me off, said, we'll see you at Christmas, and had never been far from home until then. Thought I was going to die, but it was the best experience of my life. I made some of my dearest friends there. I loved it so much that after I did graduate from the University of Wyoming, I went back to Cotty to work. So it was also my first college experience, but my first work experience as well, post-college.
And you did a 2-year program, or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was a 2-year.
And then made your way back to Wyoming.
Yep. Graduated from the University of Wyoming. Go Pokes. Yes.
Go Pokes, 7,000 feet above sea level. Tough
Correct.
Place to go for a jog, but a beautiful place to go to college. Tell me more about the Wyoming experience. We absolutely love working with the team there. And I know maybe you got connected to some of them actually at the AGB conference.
So when you transfer to a university, sometimes it's a little bit hard to get connected because a lot of, everybody goes and kind of builds those networks when they're freshmen. I had the opportunity to join the Branding Iron student newspaper. I was a journalism graduate, and so I joined the newspaper staff, worked at the Branding Iron. And
can I just ask, has it been determined that is the best name for a newspaper in all of college? Or is there
yeah, it's great. It's great.
I was going to say, it's incredible. I love it.
Yeah. Well, cowboys, all of that stuff. And, that really was a wonderful experience because I had the opportunity to hone my writing craft and photography, and, really loved being, and do to this day, love being a University of Wyoming graduate. I can sing, and often do sing, the Cowboy Joe song.
Here we go. This is your
Yeah.
moment, real quick.
Yeah.
Give us a little-
He always sings ragged music to the cattle as he swings. Back and forward in a saddle on a horse, pretty good horse, got a syncopated meter, and there is repeater as they run. Yes, run when they hear him a coming. When the Western folks all know he's a highfalutin, rootin' tootin' cowboy, son of a gun from old Wyoming Cowboy Joe. I lost the last part of it. I performance anxiety.
Jen, let's go.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I was out in Wyoming in January, and I really wish I knew this song prior to. I'm kind of kicking myself for that one.
You know, when you're the only university in a state that the entire population could fit in many large cities, medium-sized cities, you know, you take great pride and ownership. You know, they say, you know, most 6 degrees of separation thought. It's really about 3 degrees of separation in Wyoming. I have been known to yell at people who are wearing Wyoming t-shirts or license plates. Where did you get that? And do you know, where are you from? And do you know so-and-so? And by the second name, we have a mutual connection. So it's, I'm very, very proud of my Wyoming heritage.
I love that. Yeah, I grew up in Iowa. And so generally when I meet somebody in the East Coast and they hear that I'm from Iowa, they immediately say, "Oh, do you know my friend Jen from Iowa?" And it's like, no, there are 3 million people there. Like, I don't know everyone from Iowa, but it sounds like in Wyoming, it's a reasonable question to ask people.
It is a reasonable question because more likely than not, you will have a connection very quickly. So it's a great state. It's a great place to be from.
I loved it when I was out there. It's beautiful too.
It sounds like strong academic experiences. I know that along the way you pursued a master at the University of Kansas, but I don't know the exact progression there. So what informed your career path coming out of Wyoming?
Well, I had the opportunity. I was a journalism graduate. I actually had a job at a small newspaper in Torrington, Wyoming, which is about 50 miles from where I grew up. And but at the same time, Cotty had recruited me to go back and be the public relations person. And so it was kind of this, you know, to the path into the woods, and they diverged. Which one do you take? And I really thought the Cotty, because I loved that Cotty experience too. And so I had the opportunity to work there. And I'm amazed because, you know, right out of bachelor's degree, you know, you're running a PR program and you're doing, I mean, I did it all. I did the news media, I did the publications, I did all the photography. And I mean, it was just a one person operation. And because of that, you know, my whole career has been in higher ed, and had the opportunity to work first in university relations. And then when I wanted to get closer to home. So went from Missouri to Kansas, not a huge leap to get closer to home, but and then was at Emporia State University for a number of years, first in their PR department. But then one day the president called me in and said, you know, we're firing the head of the foundation. I thought he was telling me that to do media stuff. And we need somebody to go over and be the interim. So I want you to go over and do that. And I laughed. I said, yeah, right. He goes, no, you're going over there. And I got over there and I thought, you know, this is a job I think I could do, and had no fundraising experience whatsoever. But they did a search and they hired me. And being naive, I think, is sometimes the best thing. You know, ignorance and naivete, I think, serve you well. Because when I came onto the job, they had committed to doing their first campaign or big campaign. They were in the middle of building and raising money for an alumni center. They'd committed to switching software programs, and they'd committed to building a softball, baseball complex. All of those things were really early on, and I didn't know any better that I couldn't do that stuff. And we just, you know, went about it and had a great president that believed in me and a board. And you know, I learned a lot. I used to say you know, they talked about management by walking around a long time ago as a management skill. Mine was management by mistake. I had a lot of people who were very patient with me, and I really cut my teeth there. And so
tell us about some of the mistakes, if you're comfortable sharing. What stands out? Any humbling moments you can share?
Absolutely. You know, I didn't know anything about managing people, and I'm sure some people would say I was not the best, probably not the best boss, because, I was, you need to do it this way and only that way. I was more of a micromanager at the time, um, was very impatient.
Did you say you need to do it my way?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Although I was not away at the time, but yes.
Way? Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I just didn't appreciate, I think, talents and skills that everybody on the team had. And, I'm kind of, I feel bad in some ways that I didn't do a better job of being a good steward leader, I just didn't think I did a really great job. And, the first time I had to go and ask somebody for a large gift, I had to practice it so many times that I think people were really tired of me. And then the president and I went down to meet with this donor, and we got caught in traffic and didn't have it wasn't as easily accessible to just pick up the cell phone and call somebody and say we're running late. So we were literally only a few minutes late, but the donor said, yeah, and he left. And so all of that energy and effort that went into, this big ask, it had to be replayed later, and it was not nearly as good and positive as it could have been.
Wow, that's a tough one. Any experiences of asking for way too much or way too little?
So the president at the time, who was one of my mentors, I really respected. He's since deceased, but I really respected and admired him. But he and I would work with him, and we would talk about, okay, this is the way the ask is going to be, and this is what, okay, we're good. And we'd sit down and we'd say, this is what we're working on, and we'd really like you to ask you to consider this gift level. And before you could get a dollar amount out, the president would say, but you can give whatever amount you want to give. So he was already negotiating downward. And, that was a bit of a kind of a frustration on that. I think I learned then that silence is a really, really good skill. The other bad lesson that I learned at the time was we were talking to two brothers who had very substantial wealth, and talking about, we'd taken them to lunch at the country club and looked over, and their spouses were over there having lunch. And I realized that we really blew that one. We should have involved the spouses in the discussion, and I should have known better. We ended up doing okay with them, but I think we could have done a lot better.
Well, thank you for the candor. Now let's talk about some of the best memories. What are some of the, favorite donor stories or unexpected successes maybe that come to mind?
So one of the donors that I had at that time in Kansas, I will always remember this. He gave the lead gift for the welcome or the alumni center. And he said, all of us just want to leave our stain on the earth. And, that was why he gave and why he wanted their name on that, is just as a recognition of his family's success. So fast forward to today at UW Eau Claire, I've worked with a couple. We just built an alumni welcome center, and this couple met on campus. I mean, it's a great love story. Both of these are great love stories because they met on campus. They got married before one of them had graduated, and the husband still needed a little bit more time. So she was working here in Eau Claire and everything. And so, and they've been marvelously wonderful to interact with and to meet and to engage. And so I first went down to them to talk to them about a gift to the Welcome Center. And they said, yeah, we'll do this amount of gift, which was a generous gift, but wasn't what we needed to really finish because it had to be 100% privately funded. So as the project wore on a little bit further, I went back to them and said, would you really consider doing more? And, they said, yeah, we will do this. And then finally went back to them a third time. And at that point, they agreed to give half the private funding that was needed to the lead gift for the project. And so really wonderful. And it helped us motivate. We raised the money, and it took us some time to get things going. And the first bids came in over budget, and they were patient, and they kept saying, oh, we just feel so bad for you because all of this hassle of this. And I thought, here I have this lead gift and you're telling me you feel bad for me. So at some point we said, we'd really like to put your name on the building. And they said, no, we don't really want to do that. You know, we don't need to. And again, I kept going back to them and going back to them. And finally they agreed to put their family name on the building. So when we dedicated the building, Tom was telling the story about all these things, and he's coined a new term called that they were kimmed. That, you know, they were kimmed about this whole process of coming back and asking and asking. So I recently reached out to them, and I'm meeting with them to say I want to come back and I want to kim you again. So, but so gracious, and what that taught me, and I've always appreciated this, is, you know, my goal is always to have joyful donors, you know, and the most humbling experience for me is, and totally, I am just in awe when they thank me for creating that opportunity for them to fulfill a philanthropic dream. And that just makes me think, you know, I have the best job in the world. I have another donor story, which is ongoing right now. We're building an event center, and came about another donor couple who met here on campus, and they donated the land where we're going to build this. They owned riverfront property. They had a business there. And we'd asked them about doing that initially, and they said no, because they thought that they just said no. But then about 6 months later, they came back and said, are you still interested? And of course we're interested. And so the project has evolved. It's taken 7.5 years for this project to develop. We've been in up and down and sideways with partners, and then COVID. And so we got to a point where this summer, at one point they wanted to fire all of us and do something different. I mean, it's been a journey. But this summer, one of the challenges has been, you know, the fundraising for it, because they said, we're going to give you this much, but I still had about a $10 to $12 million fundraising goal. And I was trying to generate gifts with naming opportunities. But they didn't want anybody, they weren't sure, they wanted a lot of other names in the building to clutter it. And so we met with them, and they finally said, look, we're going to have to probably fund this whole thing if we want to get it done right. And so they agreed to do the entire philanthropic goal of the project, which is right now $40 million. Their total gift with the land and everything is about $70 million. We break ground next month.
Incredible. Incredible. Let's talk a little bit about, I mean, that's a great segue to some of what we discussed at AGB. Eau Claire, Wisconsin, around 70,000 people population. Of course, Eau Claire means clear water, right there in the Chippewa Valley. And Eau Claire and UW Eau Claire are inextricably linked. And it sounds like even more so as projects like this emerge. And so I'd love to just know more about what it's like, you know, in a small college town at a time when a lot of small colleges are challenged, frankly. It sounds like you're identifying, you know, folks who are not only supporters of UW Eau Claire, but supporters of Eau Claire. And, you know, just tell me about kind of that experience.
You know, when I first came here, very little had changed on campus and in the community. And, you know, we couldn't even get alumni to come back because they would say, well, nothing's different. And you know, there was a big tire plant in the community that had gone out of business or left. And so, you know, I always say, I mean, I've always been in higher ed in mid-sized and small communities where sometimes you feel like as an institution that I think the community recognizes the value of it, but there's also that notion of familiarity breeds contempt. And sometimes there's a struggle of a love-hate. But, you know, about 9 years ago, the university had the opportunity, or the foundation had the opportunity, to partner with a local developer on purchasing land in downtown Eau Claire on the river. And we talked about, you know, what would be the best use of that land. And part of our strategic master plan, and you know, the university was very intentional. We're landlocked. We have a river that runs through campus. We have a park and hillside, and we have a very historic neighborhood that border our campus. And there's just not any room for expansion. And our master plan talked about need for an arts center that, if possible, could be built in the community as a shared facility. And also the need for an event center to replace our very aging arena that was built in the early 50s. And so we had that campus master plan, which really was guided some decision making. And so we agreed that we could, build this arts center and also a mixed use project, because we're very short on student housing. And so the foundation partnered with them, and we bought the land, and then we proceeded in building a mixed use student housing project. Now, understand, I always tell every partner that I work with, we are not the masters. We're the worst partners we'll ever work with, because we don't control our own destiny. The state of Wisconsin has pretty strict rules about state institutions doing business with private entities and having prearranged contracts and deals and all of that. So our board, foundation board, who I give tons of credit to, took a leap of faith and said, let's build this student housing, even though we don't have any guarantee that the university will lease it and use it for student housing. And so we did, and we were able to get a several-year lease with the state of Wisconsin for the use of the university. And then on the other side of the land, we were going to build an arts center, a shared community arts center. And we announced that arts center. We didn't have a dime. We had no money in the kitty, but we were going to be very proactive about getting state funding, city funding, county funding, and then philanthropy. It was very controversial. It was a fight to the bitter end. And things were in the budget, things were out of the budget. The original fundraising goal was, I wanted to raise 10 million. My partner said, can you do 13 and a half? I said, okay. One of our lead donors said, do you really think we could raise that much money in Eau Claire? We've never done anything like this before. We ended up raising over 30 to 35 million for the project. And along the way, because there was such opposition to it, we had to have 2 citizen referendas on the same day, one about the city funding and one about the county funding, and they were opposing referendas. So to be successful, you had to vote no on one and yes on the other. And it was structured that way to ensure that we would not be successful, and we were. That vote was on April Fool's Day, which was also kind of interesting. But it opened the year before the pandemic in 18, 19, and it had a great first year, and then immediately shut down because of COVID. It's been successful, but what makes it successful is the university is an anchor tenant in the building. Our theater department is housed there. We do a lot of classes and everything in there, and it's fabulous. But we also benefited from amazing philanthropy that we'd never expected to happen, and much of it from younger donors in the community who really believe that we have to invest in the community. And we would never have been able to do that project if the university tried to do it on its own, or if the community tried to do it on its own. The power of the collaboration was great. And one of the things we learned from that, and that I've learned 2 things, these collaborations, these partnerships are exceedingly hard work. And you have to be willing to put the time and effort. But the other more important thing is, when you do that, you always have to keep what is right for the project at the forefront of everything you do. Nobody got 100% of what they wanted, but we got what we needed, and we always kept at the forefront what is right. Let us do what is right for the project, and it was successful.
I mean,
so
go ahead. 10 million was maybe a challenge, 13 feeling like a real stretch. When did you realize that it was going to be a home run? I mean, 30 is not beating a goal. That's absolutely smashing a goal, especially given, some of the opposition that you were sharing. And what is the building, or what is the project called?
It's the Pablo Center at the Confluence. We called originally the Confluence Art Center because it's at the confluence of the Eau Claire and Chippewa rivers, which run through downtown Eau Claire. And it's called
everybody should Google it. Check them out on Instagram at Pablo Center. When did you know that it was going to be a home run?
Well, when we had the successful referenda votes, and we got the city and county money, and then it was going to be in the state budget, and then it was out of the budget. And literally our legislative delegation in this region, both Republicans and Democrats, we brought them together, and they literally laid on the railroad tracks to get that to happen, especially one legislator who just said, if you want me to be elected again, and if you want me to hold this seat for the party, you have to put this in the budget. And it it never, once funding comes out of a budget, it never really goes back in, but they got the money back in the budget in a grant. So when those happened, and then we have these amazing alumni who started this software company, and then they sold the company and they created a foundation, and they made a naming gift, the Pablo. That's the name of their foundation, the Pablo Foundation, and they gave $5 million to put the name on the building. And once those three things happened, it was like, yeah, this is. And we have alumni all over the country who gave very generous gifts, who don't live in Eau Claire, who don't have that connection, but they just believe so much in this university and the power of the collaboration. I mean, it's a fabulous, you should Google it. I'm looking at a picture of it. It's the most beautiful building, and it sits right on the river. And what that has done too is that has spurred development in Eau Claire, downtown Eau Claire, of at least 100 to 120 million of new development. If you drive in downtown Eau Claire right now, there's 4 big construction projects underway, 2 housing developments, a huge renovation to our library, and then a building of a new transportation center.
I love it. You have just shared, right, your journey starting, I won't give exact years here, but the 80s,
Yeah.
the 80s, working in this sector at a time when, things were different, technology radically different. And just as we were getting onto this call today, or onto the conversation for the podcast, it is St. Patrick's Day, and you shared that you had just sent out yourself to your portfolio a St. Patrick's Day greeting via thank you, which warms my heart. It warms Jen's heart. And given that Jen works with our customers every single day, I'm curious, Jen, what's on your mind, both given that your dad sort of met your mom in this backdrop that we're talking about here, but also that we walked into an amazing thank you campaign right before we kicked off.
Truly, yeah, I know. It's really, it's funny when you mentioned when you were stuck in traffic and you're like, we didn't have cell phones, like really how long way we've come. But yeah, how have you really embraced thank you and kind of just like new technology, video? Did the pandemic also have anything that came into play with that, where everyone was like, oh, we need to switch to video now?
So, I will admit I'm not the best tech person in the universe, but I've been really fortunate. I have an amazing staff, and they really understand and embrace the value of things like connecting through LinkedIn and how you post news about the university on different platforms, and how we're in the process of signing up our annual giving person a texting platform that'll allow us to do more efficient texting than what we've been able to do. I'll date myself. Telefund was when you printed out, on printout little sheets of paper with the person's name and phone number, and you called and hand wrote anything that was on there. I mean, that's when I first started. What I like to say is that I know enough to know that there's a lot of stuff in front of us that, we have to reach people in different ways. I mean, I'm astounded. My mother-in-law, who's 91, lives and dies on her iPad and FaceTimes and does all sorts of things. And so, generationally, people embrace this technology because it's the way to connect. And certainly we've learned that through COVID. Our team, the number of Zoom calls that our team did with individuals, with their donor people, and were able to solicit gifts and continue that engagement was really remarkable. Now, they were doing it all with people they knew. Acquisition was a little bit more challenging, but even some acquisition of people they hadn't met, they had done, and we just embraced it. And so my philosophy on all of this is you give everybody the tools, we provide the tools, and then get out of the way, because they will use those tools in the most effective way possible. And so now, they tell me, okay, we're going to do a thank you video. you can record your video yourself or whatever. I said, no, you got to come do it because I'll never be able to get it done right. So, I think I think about just my own experience of connecting with my daughters who are all over the country, and how we try to connect and how we stay connected and linked together. It just has to apply to everybody. And so I've got great people who know how to do this stuff. And I just say, let's do it, and let's do it more,
Absolutely. What I love about Thank You is, I would say, like, the surprise and delight element. It's not just a mass marketing email that you open with a ton of text on it. It's a video, and it's fun, and it never takes itself too seriously. And it's just nice to see that face. And also, so this morning too, you sent out a St. Patty's Day campaign. Can you touch on some of the responses that you got from donors, or that you've gotten from past thank yous?
Sure. So all morning, my email's been kind of blowing up from the people that I sent things to, one after another. I'm so lucky to be, because the theme was, we're the luckiest campus in the world because of, it's St. Patty's Day luck. And then our students talked about why they're lucky to be at UW-Eau Claire. And so I have people emailing me saying, this is great, thank you. I'm lucky because of, and so they've shared their own lucky things. The other thing we do, and to great response, is, we have a wonderful music department here, and tremendous music program. And so we do happy birthday videos featuring we have a 450 person marching band, and they were on a tour, and they played happy birthday. And so we featured the band playing happy birthday all last year. This year we have a small ensemble group called Impromptu singing happy birthday, a male chorus that sang happy birthday. So we get these different music groups to record happy birthday, and then we send them out to people, and we get great response on that. Plus, it's a wonderful way to feature one of our really signature areas of the campus, to be doing this happy birthday. So we use it.
What I love about what you've shared as well is, I think sometimes folks think about thank you after the gift, right? And it's a great stewardship tool for sure. But the way that you all are leveraging it for major gift communications, because my understanding is you sent out a personalized video from you to your whole portfolio, but all of the other frontline staff did as well. And so even thinking about that intersection of major gift portfolio level communications, and engagement, I feel like as a team, we have not yet championed that enough, where it isn't always embraced, where sometimes it can be, over in the stewardship department, but not being leveraged by folks like you, who people recognize, who, they want to see your face. They've gotten to know you over the years. And of course, getting out and seeing them in person is going to be, I'm sure, a big part of 2022, but what a nice way to work in some of those touch points in between.
And I'm really proud of the fact that, our person who handles this does the data analytics to track the number of opens and responses and everything. And I always trend, when I do one that's personal, mine are always the highest open. So, and that's because I've been around the longest and people know me. So, but I always like it, because I think it's good for younger gift officers to see the person who's at the head of things as engaged and doing the heavy lifting just like they are. I think that leadership by example is really critical. So, yeah.
Something so powerful, just putting a face to the name too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've done thank you videos where it's been like a donor who has some student scholarship recipients. And so we've done videos of those scholarship recipients and done personalized thank yous to that specific donor who's far away with their scholarship recipients. So our folks have been effective at we use thank you a lot. Love the platform. Love it.
So what should Jen's dad know about UW-Eau Claire today versus when he attended? What's the biggest change, and what's coming next?
Well, the campus would be totally different from when he was here. He lives in New York State and graduated in 80. I hope I don't offend if I'm dating him.
No.
So I don't know when he's been back, but he would be astounded at both the changes of the university. We like to say we're Wisconsin's most beautiful campus. We sit on the river. We have a river that runs through it, and we've totally redeveloped so much of the campus in terms of, really stellar gateway. I mean, just the physical, of the campus, and then just some of the really cool things. We have only the second in the world research partnership with Mayo Clinic. You may have heard of them. And their medical professionals work with our faculty and students in collaborative research. And they've done research in all different areas. And just yesterday, so we're working on getting state funding for a new science building. And Mayo is going to be having a big research area within that building. So collaborate with them in our new event center that we're building down on the river. Mayo is going to be building attached to it their imaging clinic and their sports medicine clinic. And so we're very connected and aligned with Mayo, which has provided some amazing opportunities, and not just in the healthcare and health sciences area, but College of Business, where Jen's dad graduated. We've introduced it's a cohort executive MBA type of program for Mayo Med people, physicians who are getting an executive MBA as part of their ongoing development. So we're always trying to look for what is the next opportunity, looking for working with the College of Business to develop potentially a nonprofit certificate to kind of grow our own, because it's really tough to find people. And then also looking at how do we pull together some certificate to really focus on the whole ESG landscape as well. So always looking, always trying to figure out what's going to be that additional value add that's going to continue to provide great educational experiences for our students.
Incredible. Yeah, my mom is actually one who's originally from Wisconsin. And so they try to go out there every couple of years. I'm going to send them over to Eau Claire. I feel like they'll be pumped to see all of that and just kind of revisit all of the land where they met.
Jen, I'll give you all my contact information, and please tell them if they come out to contact me.
I'm going to have to give you my dad's contact information so you can send him a thank you.
I will, because we don't have his email.
Oh, I'll give it to you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Hope you kill me for that.
I promise we won't ask, but we'll just say, hey,
I'll let him know. He'll be excited. My mom will be the more excited one, because she's the one who's very like rah rah. I love Wisconsin, so she'll be into it.
Yeah.
Awesome. What advice do you have for other senior leaders who might be less comfortable embracing new technologies?
Well, I think two things is always find the people that are really on your team that are doing it and using it a lot, and trust that they're not going to, that they're going to help you be effective. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be proficient in all of it. You just have to be comfortable and trust that whatever you're doing is going to turn out okay. And I would say too that, think about what is your daily life related to with technology? I'm sure that every person in higher levels is doing Zoom calls with their kids or grandkids, and, texting and, all of those types of things. And if you're doing it to stay connected with your family and friends, then think about your constituents as your family and friends, and how would you interact with them? And just be confident that, that this can be an effective tool to use in your array of ways that you want to engage with people. And the other thing is, we try really hard not to overdo it, and you have to be sensitive to the fact that not everybody loves Zoom. Not everybody, does love these. And so you try to do as much as you can, but also be sensitive to the fact that it's not going to work for everybody, but you just got to keep throwing stuff out there.
That's great advice. I love the family and friends analogy. I'm going to start using that, because I would say, especially, since the pandemic, everybody has been connecting with family and friends virtually. So just kind of using that as the same way for your donors, treating them the same way, definitely it's a great analogy.
So I will tell you, though, that during COVID, I wrote tons and tons and tons of cards to people. I probably at least 4 times during the phases of COVID sent personalized note cards to every one of my staff just to say, thank you, you're doing a great job. Because I also think that, people, how often do you get something personal to you in the mail that has been handwritten? And so, while I think the new technology is great, I also think that it's still a good idea to do. My husband and I have a massive collection of really cool, every time we go anywhere, we get cards, birthday cards, congrats cards, thanking of you cards, all of those things. And we have the biggest postage bill ever because we're constantly sending out cards too. So I think that's the other thing is don't shelve one opportunity in place of another ad. Don't replace, I guess.
Well,
is what I would say.
And I think what you're highlighting is authenticity really matters. It's gotten so easy to hit send on an email to a million people that it makes, I think it puts a higher value on the handwritten note. It puts a higher value on the personalized thank you video. We've just started a tradition, now that we've brought the companies together. Jen, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but JD, our president, and I are sending personal thank you videos to our teammates every morning when it's their birthday. And they're, at one point somebody suggested, hey, should we just make one happy birthday video that you send to everybody? And I said, if we can't spend 30 seconds per teammate on their birthday, then we are doing it wrong. And I think you can take the same approach to your donors. If you've got 100 or 200 or 1,000 people in your portfolio, you're going to have a birthday every third day, or, maybe it's 2 a day. But if we can't send 20 to 30 second truly personalized videos, it's a missed opportunity. And, doesn't mean we can do that for every single one of our constituents. That's probably not realistic, which is where examples like your marching band or the ensemble are great. But even if you take something like that, and like you did this morning in your St. Patrick's Day campaign, have the core video, but then have the 20-second upfront. Hey, it's me, it's Kim, and you are Brent. And I just wanted to say we appreciate you. That stands out in a world of automation.
Mm-hmm. Does. I've seen that same birthday model taken with clients and doing the same thing for their donors, where it's a compilation of a bunch of people on campus wishing their high-level donors a happy birthday. And it really is such a good impact because people took the time out of their day to say something to you and not that copy and paste happy birthday.
Really well said, Jen. Kim, we're coming up on time here, and I have to give you, sorry, I think Kim, we are coming up on time here, and I want to give you an opportunity to, 1, give your team a shout out. 2, are you hiring? And 3, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
What was the first question? I forgot.
Team.
Team.
Shout out. Yeah.
So I can't speak enough about my team. We have a tradition. There's this starfish story about, putting starfish back in the ocean that have washed up on the beach and you make a difference. And so we have this actual starfish. It's a dried out one, of course, that we present. So if I get it, then I select the recipient next month, and it's who's made the difference, who's really made a difference. And people put a ton of thought into this, and it gets kind of emotional. I mean, I've gotten it a couple of times, and I get emotional that my colleagues think that, hey, I'm okay. I'm making a difference. And so they really work so collaboratively. Our HR department told us that best office on campus in terms of high degrees of satisfaction and all of those. So I can't say enough about my team. And one of the things that I always stress to them is family first. And, we have tons of flexibility because every one of them has lives outside of the office. And it's really critical that they know that I'm supportive of them and that I care about them as human beings. And they're all dog lovers too, which is okay. But it's just a great team. And so, of course, we're always hiring. I just hired somebody last week, and that came about because a couple of our team members said, this is an alum who I think we should be thinking about. And we said, fine, let's bring her in. We love her. We're figuring out what she's going to be doing. And so always looking, because the other value that I have is I don't think we spend enough trying to retain our staff. And I think more critical than ever is, what are you doing to make sure that your performers are, welcome, appreciated, valued, compensated, and that they know that they have a path in your organization that will satisfy them professionally as well as personally. And I think that's really critical. So if anybody's interested in coming to the coolest operation in the world, they can email me. Is probably the quickest way, is waykk@uwec.edu, or they can go on uwec.edu and type me in, and you'll have all my contact information. You can also text me, email me, but we will always find a place for somebody who wants to be here and who is committed to the values that we have as an entity, to make a difference, because that's all we're trying to do, is make a difference.
I love that, Kim. And the starfish is a great idea, and recognition, it matters, and intrinsic motivation has been proven to matter a lot more than some of the extrinsic stuff that oftentimes gets more of the focus. So it sounds like, look, your approach to flexibility, I know a lot of our listeners have expressed concerns that their institution isn't necessarily embracing flexibility coming out of the pandemic here, and that can mean different things to different shops, but it's good to hear you in a leadership role championing that, and really family first, spot on. And we just had a similar conversation here at Evertrue as we've come through this merger of just really focusing on happiness and well-being first and foremost, because if we're not happy, if we're not feeling good personally, how are we going to excel professionally? And sounds like we're aligned in some of our views there. So if I could, really tiny quick story.
Mm-hmm. So we were visiting our daughter in Jacksonville and on the beach, and somebody had left a plastic toy. It was a starfish plastic toy. And so I've decided I'm going to introduce another prize. It's the plastic starfish for the most fun, crazy team building thing that people are doing that are really bringing joy to the office. And so we get the real starfish, and we get then the wacky starfish. And I think equally they will be as appreciated and valued. So you always have to have joy.
Here's to more joy. Jen, you on board with that?
Yeah, that is the best sign off I could imagine.
All right. Here's to spreading joy, both in person and digitally, everywhere we go. Thank you, Kim Way. We really appreciate it. Best wishes as you continue to lead the charge at UW-Eau Claire. Brent Grinna here, signing off in Rhode Island with my guest host, Jen Zacher. Welcome. Take care, everybody.